Sure. Just catching you guys back up. I know it's been a bit, but I have been busy. Still using the epoxy and talc based mixture to finish fairing out the hull, taking out the eaves and the troughs between the hull planking. In this case, being 1/2 inch marine ply. So I've been doing a little bit of that. I got the seams down the keel for the most part. Went ahead and got them taken care of, so they're all put next to the butted right up against the hull and sanded down. So that's looking pretty good, doing what it's supposed to do. I'm pretty impressed with that. Believe it or not though, we do have some good news, and that is that I was able to get the epoxy and the cloth, being that Zinol polyester cloth, to go ahead and sheet the hull. And here's that epoxy. And the and like I said, it comes in two parts, so you got the resin and the hardener. Also have the cloth roll, which, I mean, if you look at that thing, that's pretty big. And once again, it should be enough to do the entire hull, at least according to my calculations. If not, I have only me to blame. But a lot of the work that has transpired lately has taken place inside the hull, believe it or not. So here in a minute, I'm gonna crawl under there and show you guys kind of what I've been doing. All right, so now we're back inside the hull, which you guys have never seen this before, but that's kind of what she looks like. Not very pretty right now, but I haven't taken a whole lot of time to make it pretty. Most of my efforts for the prettying up have taken place on the outside of the hull. But this is, for the most part, what she looks like on the inside. All right, but most of my efforts have been spent actually, I don't know if you can see this or not, but taking care of these screws that come through. Now there are several schools of thought on screws. A lot of boat builders that I've read don't like the idea of using screws permanently because they can rust and degrade and all that kind of fun stuff. However, I have read several boat builders that actually like to utilize screws as a means of, you know, just adding extra reinforcement. And I am, I guess, in that class. I use stainless steel or deck screws, which are coated, and I think that that'll do the job just nicely. And they did a great job of holding the hull plating in place and holding it to the chine log and the shear very nicely. So I can't really complain thus far, but once again, I mean, I'm in the early stages of building the boat, so I can't really say a whole lot. These big bolts you see are actually in the design plans, and that's actually called for to basically just reinforce the skeg. Since we have a lot of weight hanging from that part of the boat, they wanted, the designer called for reinforcement in being in like the form of like carriage bolts, which is what those are. But for the most part, I spent a lot of time in here cutting these off. And that is the end of those screws. And the reason I did that is because, one, when I start putting the cloth on, I'm going to wrap it around the shear and staple it to the shear. That way it holds itself in place and I don't have to worry about that. Basically the gunnel of the boat will be taken care of. Also, the boat itself, being encased in the Zinol polyester, will have its polyester basically anchored to the shear, which is kind of what I'm going for, and then I'll use tape and all that on the top side to hold it in place while I add the epoxy. So I can't have screws protruding right here or anywhere along the shear that would inhibit me putting the cloth on easily. So I went ahead and cut them off. The second reason I did that is because they're going to have to come off anyway, and I figured since it was turned upside down, now's the time to do it because they would fall out of the boat versus when I go ahead and flip it over, they'll want to fall inside the boat, which just means more vacuuming for me or picking them up by hand, and I really don't want to do that. But yeah, so that's kind of why I did it. And third, of course, you can't just have screws and stuff sticking up through the hull because there's going to be stuff that goes here like water tanks or running conduit or water line. And as the boat's moving back and forth and rocking about, it'll go ahead and throw that stuff around, and we don't want that. So that's why I went ahead and cut them off for a lot of those reasons. But as far as the screw debate goes, I am firmly, as it stands right now, until experience, I guess, proves me otherwise, on the side of go ahead and use screws. Can't really, doesn't seem like it'll hurt anything, and as long as you use good fasteners and follow basically the rules of the road when it comes to putting screws or rivets or nails in, you should be pretty good. But that's basically where me and, of course, my lovely wife have spent most of our time lately, is under here with my Dremel cutting those screws off, the tails of the screws off. So that's where we're at. I'm going to continue to fare down the hull like I'm doing. A little bit of inside work, not a whole lot. And I will catch you guys on the flip side when I start to coat the hull in the polyester. So I'll see you then.